The house stood on a hill overlooking the town. It was a sight to behold, especially on foggy mornings when the mist would wrap around its tall, imposing structure, giving it an almost ethereal quality. The townsfolk often spoke in hushed tones about the house, sharing stories and legends that had been passed down through generations. Some said it was haunted, while others believed it held secrets from a bygone era. But no matter what people thought, the house remained a silent sentinel, watching over the town below. It was a grand Old Victorian with dark wood and stained glass windows. The craftsmanship was exquisite, a testament to the artisans of the past. Each stained glass window told a story, with vibrant colors and intricate designs that seemed to come alive when the sunlight streamed through. The dark wood exterior, though weathered by time, still held a certain majesty, a reminder of the house's former glory. It was clear that this house had once been a jewel of the town, a place of beauty and elegance. The paint was peeling, and the yard was overgrown. Nature had begun to reclaim the land, with vines creeping up the walls and weeds sprouting through the cracks in the pathway. The once meticulously maintained garden was now a wild tangle of greenery, a stark contrast to the house's former splendor. It was as if the house was slowly being swallowed by the passage of time, each flake of paint and each blade of grass a reminder of its inevitable decay. I felt it the moment I stepped inside. There was an undeniable presence, a weight in the air that pressed down on me. The house seemed to breathe, its walls whispering secrets of the past. Each creak of the floorboards and each groan of the timbers told a story, a narrative of lives once lived within these walls. It was as if the house itself was alive, a living, breathing entity that had witnessed countless moments of joy, sorrow, and everything in between. A coldness, an emptiness. The rooms were vast and echoing, filled with shadows that seemed to dance in the corners. The air was thick with the scent of dust and age, a reminder of the years that had passed since the house had last been filled with life. Each room held its own story, its own memories, but now they were just empty shells, echoes of a time long gone. The coldness seeped into my bones, a chill that seemed to come from the very heart of the house. The air was heavy, like something was watching me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone, that unseen eyes were following my every move. The house seemed to hum with a quiet energy, a vibration that I could feel deep within my chest. It was as if the very walls were alive, pulsing with the memories of those who had once called this place home. Each step I took echoed through the empty halls, a reminder of the solitude that now filled this once vibrant house. Dust covered the furniture, and cobwebs hung from the chandeliers. The once grand rooms were now filled with the detritus of time, a layer of dust that seemed to mute the colors and dull the shine of the once polished surfaces. The chandeliers, which had once sparkled with light, were now draped in cobwebs, their crystals dulled by years of neglect. It was a hauntingly beautiful sight, a reminder of the passage of time and the inevitability of decay. The house creaked and groaned, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. Each sound seemed to carry a message, a fragment of a story that I could almost grasp, but never fully comprehend. The whispers seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, a chorus of voices that filled the empty rooms. It was as if the house was trying to communicate, to share its history with anyone who would listen. But the secrets it held were elusive, slipping through my fingers like sand. It was like stepping back in time, into a place forgotten by the world. The house was a time capsule, a snapshot of a bygone era preserved in dust and decay. Each room was a window into the past, filled with relics of a time when the house had been filled with life and laughter. It was a place of memories, a repository of stories that had been forgotten by the world outside. And as I stood there, surrounded by the echoes of the past, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of connection to the history that had unfolded within these walls. At first I thought it was the house settling. The old wooden beams and floorboards creaked and groaned, a symphony of age and wear. It was almost comforting, a reminder of the house's long history and the many lives it had sheltered. Old houses make noises, especially at night. The wind would whistle through the cracks, and the occasional thud of a settling beam was nothing unusual. I had grown accustomed to these sounds, even found them soothing in a strange way. But the sounds became more frequent, whispers, murmurs. At first they were so faint I could barely hear them, just a soft susurration that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. I would strain my ears trying to catch a word, a phrase, but it was always just out of reach. Faint voices just at the edge of hearing, they would rise and fall like the ebb and flow of a distant tide. Sometimes I thought I could hear laughter or crying, but it was always too faint to be sure. It was maddening, this constant whispering that I could never quite make out. They seemed to come from the walls themselves, moving from room to room. I would follow the sound, my heart pounding in my chest, but it would always vanish as quickly as it appeared. I would stand there, in the dark, straining to hear, but there was nothing, just silence. I would follow the sound, but it would always vanish as quickly as it appeared. It was as if the house was playing a game with me, leading me on a wild goose chase through its dark, empty rooms. I began to feel like I was losing my mind, chasing shadows and whispers in the night. One night I woke to a cold breath on my face. It was so cold it felt like ice and it sent a shiver down my spine. I opened my eyes and there, in the darkness, I saw a shadowy figure standing over me. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I was paralyzed with fear. A voice so close it seemed to be inside my head whispered, "Get out!" The words echoed in my mind, a command that I couldn't ignore. I scrambled out of bed, my heart racing, and ran out of the room. I didn't stop until I was outside, the cold night air biting at my skin. I stood there gasping for breath, trying to make sense of what had just happened. But deep down, I knew. The house was haunted, and it wanted me gone. I knew I had to document this. The strange occurrences in my house had been escalating and I needed proof. It wasn't just about convincing others. It was about convincing myself. The whispers in the night, the shadows that moved on their own, they couldn't just be figments of my imagination. I had to capture evidence, something tangible that I could analyze and understand. This was my chance to confront the unknown. I had to prove I wasn't going crazy. Every night, the same eerie sensations would creep over me, making me question my sanity. Friends and family thought I was just stressed, but I knew there was something more. The fear was real, and it was time to face it head on. I needed to show that these experiences were not just in my head. They were real, and they were happening in my home. I brought in my recording equipment, digital recorders, microphones, and EVP devices. Each piece of equipment was carefully chosen for its ability to capture even the slightest anomalies. The digital recorders would pick up any unexplained sounds, while the microphones were sensitive enough to detect whispers that the human ear might miss. The EVP devices, specifically designed to capture electronic voice phenomena, were my best bet at recording the voices I had been hearing. I placed them strategically around the house, focusing on the areas where the voices were strongest. The living room, where I often heard murmurs late at night, the hallway where shadows seemed to dance just out of sight, and the basement, the epicenter of the most intense activity. Each device was positioned to maximize its coverage, ensuring that no corner of the house was left unmonitored. I was meticulous, knowing that any oversight could mean missing crucial evidence. The equipment was sensitive enough to pick up even the faintest sounds. I tested each device, making sure they were functioning perfectly. The microphones could detect a pin drop, and the digital recorders displayed sound waves that would reveal any anomalies. I felt a mix of anticipation and dread, knowing that once everything was set up, all I could do was wait. The house was now a giant trap, ready to capture whatever was haunting it. I sat in the darkness, headphones on, listening to the static. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional crackle of the equipment. My heart pounded in my chest as I strained to hear any sign of the voices. Every creak of the house, every rustle of the wind outside, made me jump. I was on edge, my senses heightened, waiting for the moment when the silence would be broken by something otherworldly, waiting, hoping for a sign. The minutes felt like hours as I sat there, my eyes scanning the darkness for any movement. I knew that patience was key, but it was hard to stay calm when every fiber of my being was on high alert. I kept reminding myself why I was doing this, to find the truth, to prove that I wasn't losing my mind. The anticipation was almost unbearable, but I had to stay focused. The house was silent, holding its breath. It felt as if the very walls were watching me, waiting to reveal their secrets. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on me. This was it, the moment of truth. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever was to come. The trap was set, and now all I could do was wait for the house to speak. Hours turned into days. The recorders captured nothing but the creaking of the house and the wind whistling through the broken windows. Frustration gnawed at me. Was I imagining things? Had the voices moved on? Just when I was about to give up, I heard it. A faint sound buried beneath the static, a child's voice calling out. The voice was barely audible, a whisper lost in time. I cleaned up the recording, removing the background noise. It sent chills down my spine. "Help me!" the voice pleaded. "I'm trapped!" The voice was filled with sadness, a deep sorrow that resonated through me. I felt a surge of empathy, a desire to help this lost soul, but who was it? And why were they trapped? Night after night, I listened to the recordings. The child's voice appeared more frequently, each time revealing a little more of its story. It spoke of a family, of laughter and love. Then, a sudden tragedy, a fire. The child was trapped in the house, unable to escape the flames. Its cries for help echoed through the years, a haunting reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded within these walls. The voices became stronger, more insistent. They were no longer just whispers, they were warnings. "Get out!" a voice boomed, shaking the very foundation of the house. The energy intensified. Objects moved on their own, doors slammed shut. I felt a presence, cold and menacing, watching my every move. It was a terrifying experience, but I was determined to uncover the truth. I continued to live in the house, documenting the paranormal activity. I learned to coexist with the voices, to respect their presence. The child's voice, though filled with sadness, brought a strange comfort. It was a reminder that I was not alone. The house was no longer just an empty shell, it was alive with the echoes of the past. The experience changed me. It opened my eyes to a world beyond our understanding, a world where the veil between the living and the dead is thin. I left the house a changed man, forever marked by the voices in the walls. The Old Victorian still stands on the hill, a haunting reminder of the secrets it holds, and though the voices may have quieted, I know they are still there, waiting to be heard.